Hello everyone, today we are here to remake the videos about Heavy's HP buff problem. Now, I noticed that on my previous video I talked way more about the 100 line being overpowered and why E100 players are noobs than the actual Heavy's HP buff, so I'm sorry for that. And yes, the replays are going to be the exact same, I just changed their orders. But let's start. Problem number 1. Heavies are relying on their hit points more than their armor. Have you ever seen a mouse just not really caring if a T62A is shooting at him? Yeah, that's a very big problem. Before the Heavy's HP buff, mouses actually cared about angling their armor. Nowadays, a mouse with 3k hit points doesn't really care if a T62A, or some even don't really care if a 1A3 is about to shoot at them. They just don't care. They rely more on their hit points than their armor. This also contributes to the Kolobanov's grinders problem, which is basically heavy tanks who just camp and wait for their team to die. And when their team dies, they rush. Why? They have armor and they have way more hit points than what they should have. Which means that they're going to completely grind the Kolobanov's medal, not because of skill, but just because they have armor and a stupid amount of hit points. After this, we also have the problem that Blitz is made to be as a fast action mobile game. Because, like, this is a mobile game. People don't want to spend 1 hour playing one match. And as such, heavies are completely ruining the whole point of it. Blitz matches used to be like 3 to 4 minutes, but sometimes, due to Heavy's HP buff, they can go even to 6 minutes. Now, granted, some matches did go up to 6 minutes, but those were pretty rare, and those were usually really good matches where a guy was just pulling off Kolobanovs. But as I said previously, Heavies are there to ruin it. Heavies just have too many hit points. After this, we also have the problem that Heavies don't really no wait we have the problem that the buffs were given to any heavy regardless of how they are. Heavy tanks are supposed to be well armored and they are supposed to have some very big guns, right? Wrong. We have a class in the game which is between medium and heavy, which is called by Heavium. This is basically a class of heavy tanks that don't really have a lot of armor and have some decent guns. And this is what they rely on, mobility. But for some reason, Wargaming also decided to give the HP buff into these Heaviums, basically turning them into mediums with way more hit points, which means that if you find one of these tanks in the medium side, they are going to completely ruin your game, because they're just going to sit there and farm everyone, and even if they do get shot at, they just have too many hit points. They can just take it. Do you think that they care? Do you think that they care about your little 210 alpha damage? No, they don't. They don't. They're going to keep on destroying you. The amount of heavies per team is also not restricted. So let's imagine there's 2 VKs 100 piece on the enemy team, and your team only has, let's say, an Annihilator. Do you think that that's fair? Those 2 VKs have like 4k hit points. The Annihilator has like 1.5k, I think. That is not fair. The VKs are just going to completely stomp your team. Most of the time, the tier 8 players from your team can maybe kill a VK or so, but overall, the VKs are just going to have a very big advantage compared to your team, especially if it's one of those matches where it's just two tiers 8 and everything else is tier 7. Now, this is just an example. Of course, this can happen if you're a tier 6 and the enemy has a tier 7, etc, etc, etc. The problem is that heavies are not restricted. If Wargaming really wants to at least make this a bit more balanced, there should be a limit, you know? To start off, there should be a limit to how many heavies can be in one team, and there should also be a rule where if there is one heavy from a higher tier on the enemy team, there should also be one heavy on your team, and the heavies have to be somewhat competitive. So like, they can't just put you with a, let's say, a AMX 50-100 and give the enemy a freaking VK 100p. No, your heavy should also have armor so that it at least can fight off the VK. And last but not least, we have the problem that heavies are just wrong line, sorry. Heavies got consumables. You may remember the time where Wargaming gave the Black Prince consumables. The Black Prince is just a prime example of all this. But before we talk about it, let's start another play. Instead of going with the icebreaker play, I decided to use this one. This is a very good ace made by my friend LP, and it's going to show off the heavies problem. But getting back to the consumables, the Black Prince. The Black Prince is very well armored, and it has a good gun. I mean, I'm not going to call it really good, because the penetration is horrible and the alpha damage is horrible, but it pays off with the DPM. And let's just get back to the consumables. The Black Prince is a slow heavy. It has a lot of armor. Even tiers 8 struggle to penetrate it sometimes. But for some reason, in their rightful mind, Wargaming decided to just give the Black Prince an equipment that counters its downside. What? Wargaming gave the Black Prince the improved engine boost. So literally, the flaw of the Black Prince, the whole point of making the Black Prince balanced by making it incredibly slow, they just ruined it. They grabbed the Black Prince and gave it something that turns it into a medium for a few seconds. Okay, it's just a few seconds, but we all know that a few seconds can change the entire course of a match. The Black Prince, if I'm not mistaken, also got the sandbag armor, which basically increases the hit points of the Black Prince. Because, apparently the Heavy's HP buff isn't enough. Heavy should also get sandbag armor, so they can get even more hit points. This is the problem. Heavies are just relying on their hit points. A lot of players nowadays don't even care about armor angling. They're making the game more slow, they're farming Kolobanovs unfairly, and they're ruining the matches for a lot of players, like what's about to happen on LP. Granted, LP is going to pull off a bad HG shot on the T49 in the end, but we will see how the love is going to stay. Yeah, the love is going to be the problem. If I'm not mistaken, he's going to stay like 1 to 3 shots, maybe? No, wait, 2 to 3 shots. But before the Heavy's HP buff, he'll be 1 shot if he's lucky. That's the problem. The Heavies are just... Mediums just don't deal enough damage to actually make the Heavies scared of them. Heavies don't care. Now let's watch their play. LP is doing so far so good. He's farming on the Conqueror. Now he's going to push forwards. I'm sorry for my commentary, but I really suck. That's kinda why I don't really like to do commentary, because, again, as I said, I suck at doing commentary. Now he's trying to flank them. He's trying to get behind them, so he can maybe pull off a AG behind the T-34 or the T-95. Oh, a very good snapshot. Now he's getting behind of the T-30. The T-30 notices and tries to back out, but LP sneaks in a shot. 3.8k damage, 310 bounced. He's going to pull off another... Oh, no, he's not. He's going to bounce on the T-34. And now he's going to try and flank the T-34. But he's going to have to be careful because the T-95 is there. So 1 shot into the T-34. And now he reloads. Is he going to sneak the AG in? No, he is not. And now he's going to reload, and boom. There it goes, the T-34. The T-95 is trying to push, but the T-95 is incredibly slow. So even at turning, just look at how the T-95 turns. LP is just going to flank the T-95 and have some fun with him. And kaboom! There it goes, the T-95. Just look at the Loaf. The Loaf was fighting off like 3 or 4 guys, and look at how many hit points he still has. He pulls off a very good shot into the Loaf. The Loaf is 700 hit points. And is he going to sneak up another shot? No, I don't think he is. I never watched this replay. But as you can see, the Loaf still has too many hit points. The Loaf just fought off against those guys. The T-49 is playing really well. The T-49 is being really careful, and that's why the T-49 is full HP. But the Loaf, he just went like crazy sometimes. He didn't care about the enemies shooting at him sometimes, and look at how many hit points he has. Even if LP manages to outsmart the T-49, the Love is still going to have 700 hit points. The T-49 is paper. As you can see, LP snuck up a good AG on the T-49. But again, even if he did kill the T-49, I don't think he is, but even if he did, the Love is still 700 hit points. And the Love has armor. So he could also kill the Love, but there's also the chance that the Love, with its armor, even without angling, sometimes the armor may troll him, and he can still bounce off. He's going to sneak up. Oh, he's not. That was only splash. But just look at that. LP outsmarted the T-49. The T-49 is like 1 AG and 1 AP, or even 2 AGs. Even like the second one, if he penetrates with the first one, he can just splash the T-49. He has a 105mm gun, so it can do that. But the Love is still 750 hit points. That is not fair. The Love just went in there like crazy, as we saw, and he was fighting off against a couple of enemies, and he didn't care. And that, again, is the problem. The Love, just look at him. He's not being really careful. Any good player would just kind of go against the building to try to stop LP from putting a shot to him, but he didn't. The Love just went there, and now the T-49 finishes him off. The Love didn't care most of the time. The Love simply didn't care. He just went there and relied on his hit points. And that, again, as I've said so many times today, that is a problem. Heavies should not be able to just rely on their hit points. They should be able to rely on their armor. That's why they're heavies. That's why they have armor. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. Give a like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.